I'm sorry, did you say Satan? The young man standing on my porch nodded eagerly. Yes, sir, he said. We have come to spread the message of our Lord and Savior Satan. I looked from him to his companion. Both were dressed in no-fitting white button-down shirts and black slacks, with gelled-up slight-part haircuts and slightly manic smiles. Okay, I said. Well, I'm not really into the Lord and Savior thing, so I think I'm gonna have to pass. I closed the door only to find the young man's foot obstructing it. I opened it back up and I sighed. Just a moment of your time, sir, and the young man said. Perhaps a look at our literature could convince you. The other young man lifted up his suitcase and popped open the latches. When I saw what was inside, my heart nearly jumped in my chest. Is that real? I asked. Oh, yes, sir, the first man said. Go ahead and take a closer look. I slowly reached out and picked up one of the bundles and inspected it. I'm no expert, but it certainly looked like a real stack of $100 bills to me. I looked from the money to the creepy but overall harmless-seeming young man, and then I waved them inside. We sat down around my coffee table and there was a moment of awkward silence. I began, clearing my throat. My name's David, and you two are? Oh, forgive my rudeness, sir, the first young man replied. I am Paul, and this is Stephen. Oh, well, would you like anything to drink? Oh, no, sir. We do not require sustenance as mortals do, said Paul. Right, I said. I picked up my half-finished beer from the night before and I took a swig. The two men just sat in silence and grinning at me as I drank. I coughed a little bit after I finished my beer and I wiped the foam from my lips. You said that you came to spread a message, right? I asked. So what's the message? We're really glad you asked, said Paul. Satan is recruiting for skilled labor positions in hell, and we've identified you as a top candidate. Congratulations, sir. This is fantastic news for you. My eyes wandered to the suitcase full of money. And, what does this job consist of? I asked. Asking all of the right questions, Paul replied. You're a sharp guy, David. The details are laid out in this contract here. Stephen? Stephen produced a single piece of paper from somewhere I couldn't see and laid it on the coffee table. I picked up the paper and I stared at it. This is a contract, I asked. Oh, yes, sir, said Paul. What language is this in? It's written in Old Ocean, sir. The language of angels. I set the contract back down on the table. Well, what's it say? I asked. Oh, I'm so sorry, sir, said Paul. I can't read Old Ocean. We're just instructed by our superior to deliver the contract along with your signing bonus. A signing bonus? I asked. Stephen popped open the latches to the suitcase once again. So you're telling me, I said, setting down my beer, that if I sign that piece of paper, you're just going to give me a suitcase full of money? Yes, sir, that's the deal, Paul said enthusiastically. I took another swig of my beer. You got a pen? I asked. Paul handed me the pen and I scribbled my name messily on the bottom of the paper, which Stephen promptly snatched up and stowed away somewhere I couldn't see. Wow, that's just great, said Paul. I guess we better go now. All right, I said. I'll see you guys later. Very funny, sir, said Paul. Of course, I meant we three better get going. What do you mean by? My voice was cut off by a roaring sound as the three of us fell through the floor. Hot air rushed past us as we fell towards a distant red glow below us. Paul and Stephen's faces remained frozen in their manic grins as their ties flapped up and whipped around their faces. We fell hard on the glowing red dirt below, sending up a cloud of dust around us. When the dust cleared, I found myself in a strange cross between a cave and an office, facing a large obsidian desk behind which sat a high-backed leather chair. The chair slowly swung around to reveal a smiling red demon in a suit. "Oh, hi, David," he said. "I'm Satan. Now let's talk about that job." "What in God's name is going on here?" I sputtered out. Satan arched one of his thin black eyebrows. "In whose name?" he said. I began, before Satan cut me off with good-natured laughter. "I'm only joking," Satan said. "But boy, do you ever not know how to read a room, Jerry? You're really gonna have to work on that if you're gonna succeed down here in hell." "But my name's David," I said. Satan opened a manila file folder on his desk and slipped on a pair of glasses for reading. He scanned the folder for a moment before looking back up at me. "Are you not Jerry Smith, satanic cult leader and master of the unholy magic?" he asked. No, I'm just an accountant," I replied. Satan scratched at his goatee. "Well, that's not good at all," he said. "Do you at least have a bachelor's degree in unholy magic?" "No," I said. "Is that even a thing that exists?" "Of course it is," said Satan. "We have an online program at the University of Phoenix." "Oh," I said. "But isn't that place kind of a scam?" he said. "Why? Because they lure naive young people in with the promise of a better future, and then bilk them out of thousands of dollars all in exchange for a degree not worth the paper it's printed on." Yeah," I said. That was the reason that I was thinking of. "Jerry, said Satan, shaking his head. "My name's actually. I know that to the less enlightened that may seem like a scam," he went on. "But here in hell, we call that a masterclass in practical business ethics. Plus, due to some clever legal maneuvering, we have the implicit right to employ 20% of the graduates after death." Okay then. Satan sighed and closed the folder before slipping off his spectacles and setting them down gently on his desk. "Well," he said, "I can tell that you're probably not going to be a good fit here. But seeing that you've already signed the contract and there are some pretty steep penalties for breach, you're just going to have to do your best." He redirected his attention to the corner of the room where Paul and Steven stood, still sporting their manic Cheshire Cat grins. "And as for you two," he said, "change out of those human suits, you're giving me the creeps." "Yes, sir, right away," said Paul. There was a wet tearing noise and Paul and Steven's faces split down the middle as two gargantuan, insect-like heads sprouted out from their necks. The rest of the skin slid off onto the floor like a pile of discarded clothes. Satan shook his head as he regarded the two now stark-naked demons standing in his office. "Don't you guys wear clothes under those suits?" he said. Sorry, Mr. Satan, sir," said Paul. "It's really hot with clothes on underneath." "You do realize that we're currently in hell, right?" said Satan. "You guys should be used to the heat by now." Yes, Mr. Satan, sir," said Paul. Satan sighed and pressed a little red button on his phone headset. "Tina," he said. "Yes, Mr. Satan," came a tired-sounding female voice. "Can you please send Frinzel in to escort Paul and Steven to the pain monster down in HR?" "Yes, Mr. Satan." The door to the office opened and a giant blue-skinned demon with a hatchet embedded in the back of his skull entered. He slung the two demons over his shoulder and carried them screaming out of the office. "I should have fired those two a long time ago," said Satan, shaking his head. "But they're my wife's nephews. What can I do?" I don't know," I replied. As Satan skimmed the manila file folder on his desk, he eyed the two suits of human skin in the corner of the office, wondering if they had been used to be filled with humans instead of demons. My thoughts were soon interrupted by Satan clearing his throat. "Well, no sense in wasting time," he said. "Let's get down to brass tacks. I assume you're familiar with Orsnack's law of eternal snow entropy and hyperinflation." "Orsnack's what?" I asked. Satan sighed and scribbled a note in his folder. "Well, at the very least you should be acquainted with Baal's index of human evil, and the correct way to measure a soul's value in micro-Hitlers," he said. I shook my head. Sorry, no, I said. Satan frowned and scribbled another note inside his folder, and then he shut it and tossed it into the fireplace in the back corner of the office. The fire flashed bright purple for a moment, and then the file was gone. That's all right, he said with an easy smile. It's all relatively straightforward. I'm sure you'll pick it up in no time. In the meantime, though, I'm going to assign you a training officer to help you learn the ropes and monitor your progress. Satan pressed a button on his phone headset. Tina? He said. Yes, Mr. Satan. A tired-sounding female voice replied. Can you send in Frankenteddy? Yes, Mr. Satan, replied the voice. Satan released the button, and a moment later the office doors bursted open and an enormous demonic teddy bear lumbered in. His fur was gray and spotted with what looked suspiciously like old bloodstains, and one of his eyes glowed red like burning coal. When he spoke, it was in a deep, resounding baritone that was so loud it chattered my teeth. Yes, Lord Satan, he boomed. Hello, Frankenteddy, said Satan. This here is Jerry Smith, Master of Satanic Accounting. I need you to show him the ropes of the new project they're running out of Daryl's department. Do you think you can do that for me? I shall complete my task or die in the course of its glorious undertaking, Frankenteddy said. And then, turning his attention to me, he said, Come, human, we have work to do. Yet when I tried to stand, I found that my legs couldn't move. My stomach was squirming and the demon's ember eyes felt like it was burning a hole in me from across the room. Satan, I asked. Yes, Jerry. You don't, have, human training officers, do you? Why, are you some kind of racist or something? Said Satan. No, our teddy bear is even technically a race. I am a commander in Satan's demonic legion, boomed Frankenteddy. Not a silly teddy bear. Really insensitive, Jerry, said Satan, shaking his head. Besides, you've got no need to worry. Frankenteddy is one of our finest officers, and he's only authorized to use lethal force in extreme circumstances. Oh, I said. That's comforting. Come, tiny human, boomed Frankenteddy. He motioned for me to follow him out of the office, and I did so. When we got into the hallway, he said, It is time for your first and most important lesson, human. In the everlasting kingdom of hell, all circumstances qualify as extreme. I felt my knees weaken a little. I opened my mouth to reply, but all that came out was a slight gasping sound. The hallway that Frankenteddy and I walked along was filled with closed doors. Screams emanated from the rooms behind them. I felt a deep sense of dread beginning to bubble in my stomach. I hope that I'm still alive in a few days' time, and if I am, I'll update you guys then. Frankenteddy ushered me into Daryl's apartment, a dim little office lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The new satanic thrall has arrived, announced Frankenteddy. Daryl walked up and eyed me up and down. He was a short reptilian demon with a large pot belly that strained the buttons of his shirt. He looked over his spectacles at me with a look of slight disinterest. Jerry Smith, Master of Satanic Magic, he said. There has been a mix-up, Frankenteddy said. This is David Robbins, Master of Satanic Accounting. Just accounting, I said. Daryl crossed his arms and wrinkled up the leathery skin on his face. What am I supposed to do with the regular Earth accountant? He asked. This is no good. Tell Satan to send him back. We can't send him back, he replied. He's already signed the contract. Daryl sighed and rubbed his forehead. He turned around and beckoned over his shoulder at me. Come this way, he said. I'll show you to your desk. He led us to a small but hefty-looking metal desk with a leg manacle attached to the bottom. Don't worry, Daryl said when he caught me eyeing it. We don't use the chains anymore. New labor regulations and all that. That's great, I said faintly. So I assume that you know what you're going to be doing here then, he asked. The contract would have been very detailed. Well, it was written in Note in Ocean, I said. Daryl peeked over the top of his glasses again. You mean to tell me that you can't read Old Ocean? He asked. Yeah, that's right. Daryl pulled off his spectacles and rubbed his eyes. And yet Satan still refuses to let the department head interview new candidates, he said despondently. Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's nothing exciting. In this department, we basically serve as a middleman. We deal with the buying and selling of souls. Why would you buy a human soul? I asked. Various cosmic entities. What do you do with them? I asked. Daryl shrugged. We don't really deal with that in this department, he said. I always thought hell was the final destination for damned souls, I said. I had no idea that it was actually just full of middlemen. First off, Daryl said, even if hell was the final destination for souls, it would still be filled with middlemen. And secondly, hell is a multi-dimensional corporation. We don't just trade souls. We have parts in all kinds of business. We just closed a big endorsement deal with an A-list movie star for one of our reverse mortgage companies. Really? I said. You managed to get a movie star to sign a deal with Satan. How did you do that? Oh, it was easy, Daryl said, waving his hand dismissively. We own 90% of all the souls in Hollywood. Oh, I said. Don't worry, Daryl said. It takes a little moral flexibility at first, but I'm sure that you'll get used to it. And all things considered, it's not a half-bad place to work. We've got an excellent medical plan, for instance. Really? Oh, sure, Daryl said. Just let our medical department know if any part of your body is bothering you and they'll remove it. Almost totally free of charge. If you want anesthesia, though, you'll have to pay for that yourself. And just then, there was a terrible, blood-curdling scream from down the hall. What was that? I said. Oh, said Daryl. Jeremy from Human Resources had a hangnail, and the medical department opted to amputate his foot. Better safe than sorry, you know. If Jeremy doesn't have a foot, then he can't have any more expensive medical problems. I looked down at my foot and thought about my own hangnail, and my stomach gave a sickening lurch. I would like to opt out of the medical plan, I said. I need all of my body parts to live. Really? Said Daryl, raising his eyebrows. If that's the case, I'd stay away from the office paper shredder. It's terribly aggressive. I had the large metal paper shredder in the corner, the top of which was totally covered in fresh blood, and I silently vowed never to go into that section of the office. What do you mean by aggressive? I said. Just then, a small amphibious demon staring at a folder walked right by the shredder, and it was promptly vaulted by a spring-loaded floor panel directly into the machine's mouth. There was a sick, wet grinding noise and blood sprayed all over the ceiling. Damn it, Daryl said. I keep telling the interns not to go near it, but they always forget. We'll have to get a new badge from the local community college soon. My heart began to pound wildly in my chest, and bile rose in my stomach as I fought the urge to vomit. Are you alright? Asked Daryl. You look a little green. I'm fine, I croaked out. Are you sure? He asked. Maybe you do need to go to the medical department. No, I screamed. I mean, I'm fine. I'm just not sure that I'm too comfortable with selling human souls. It's just business, David, he said. You know what that means, right? Yes, well, Frankenteddy is your training officer. I'll let him explain it to you. It's just business is what you say when you want to do something terrible and not feel bad about it afterwards. Boom, Frankenteddy. What? Said Daryl. No, that's not right at all. Frankenteddy shrugged. That's what Satan told me, he said. You're all going to give me an aneurysm, said Daryl. Look, at the very least, I'm sure you know that we have a new project in the pipeline. It's the entire reason Satan hired you after all. Oh, yes, I said. He mentioned something about that. Well, this is top secret, he said. He peered over his spectacles at Frankenteddy. That means you need to leave, he said. But I have the highest security clearance in hell, protested Frankenteddy. Yes, said Daryl. You also have a big mouth and a head full of stuffing. Now get out and let David and I get to it. Fine, said Frankenteddy. I didn't want to know anyways. Frankenteddy stomped out of the office and slammed the door behind him. So, can we talk about the secret project now? Daryl held up a hand to silence me. He picked up a sealed ream of paper from the desk and hurled it at the door. Ow! Came Frankenteddy's muffled voice from behind the door. It was quickly followed by the heavy sound of retreating footsteps. Now we can talk, said Daryl. So, you're an accountant, right? I assume you know how supply and demand works. Yes, vaguely at least. Good, said Daryl. Because as the middleman in the exchange of souls between worlds, our profit margins are totally dependent on controlling the flow of souls. You see, Hell used to have a monopoly on selling souls to other dimensions, but lately, new competitors have sprouted up in the form of new religions. Combined with the global population increase, souls are being devalued at the same time we're losing control of the market. Okay, I said. You see, our investment in Hollywood has proved particularly lucrative, and it has allowed us to clinch some high-level celebrity endorsement deals for pennies on the dollar. Using this hub of America as our personal advertising agency allows us to secure souls from all over the country. So our top priority is resecuring that market from the new fad religion that's stealing celebrity souls from us. Hold on, I said. Are you talking about Scientology? Shh, said Daryl, looking around the room with a clear expression of paranoia. Never say the S word around here. Are you trying to get us sued? In our department, we use a code word. From here on out, you refer to our work as BS, which is obviously short for beating well you know, the ass. Right, I said. So how are we going to beat them? With clubs, eventually, said Daryl, but that comes later on, after the economic ruin. After all, we can't get away with beating rich people to death in the street now, can we? No, I said, I guess not. Good, said Daryl. So I guess we're on the same page. Now, let's get started. He beckoned me to an old wooden door in the back of the office. There was a brown plastic plaque on the side of the room that read, Disintegration Room. Daryl pushed the door open to darkness beyond, but I stood rooted to the ground, unable to force my legs to move. He turned around and he raised his eyebrows. Aren't you coming? He said. I could feel the bile rising in my stomach again. Daryl, I asked. What's the disintegration room? Replied Daryl. That's the basis of our whole plan.